Welcome to the Go Big Redcast with Dave, Honky, Boomer, and Redcast Rob.
Welcome to the Go Big Redcast. I'm your host, Honky, and I'm with Redcast Rob.
Well, on today's 38th anniversary of the Police Academy movie's original premiere, I would like to give a shout out to my good buddy Honky over here and tell him, you know what, man, I hope that you have a lifetime of enjoyment of all of those wonderful, wonderful comedy, whatever it is that they call that.
Yeah, once they did the Police Academy 5 down in Miami, it just lost all of its original, credibility with me. I don't know. The one in Moscow, I was like, I'm done with this. So, yeah. I'm also with Boomer.
Yeah, really in today's day and age, that whole Mission to Moscow thing, it really shouldn't be played anymore.
I agree.
My understanding, yeah. But I think the Citizen of Control really kind of wrapped up that storyline and answered all the pressing questions that the others left out there. So, yeah, good to see. And I'm also excited for our guest today. You can finally get all those pressing pre-World War I Husker questions answered that I know all of our fans have been dying to hear about. So.
Well, we're going to introduce you to our guest here in a second, but first I just want to go through some of our normal house cleaning here that we have, or housekeeping. Mark your calendars. This is hot off the presses here. We're going to have a Husk Girl Power show live streamed on Monday, April 4th at 8:30. And even the writer of Nebraska's beloved fight song pointed out the girls are the fairest of any old place that he knew. And we'll be teaming up with Meg and Kylie from the Popping Kernels podcast and a forum of other great Husker fans, Amy, Maddie, Sarah, and Abby. So you won't want to miss out on this one. And Rob, of course, as usual, our promo code.
If you go to herdat.com and go to subscribe to the Hail Varsity magazine, which came out today. I haven't got a new copy of it yet, but it does include a really cool Redcast ad in there. They've screen grabbed a Redcast tweet. So apparently they love us. We love them. And if you check out and use Redcast at checkout, you'll receive a $10 discount on the first year of your Hail Varsity subscription. And speaking of interviews too, just kind of keep your calendars open, as well as I've got a couple of things working here coming up in the future. Near future, hopefully for next week. And then I might even be having another lunch cast coming up. I'm not going to say who it's with or whose dad it's going to be with.
I know.
It's some really exciting stuff. And I know the Redcast Nation, am I allowed to say that? Redcast Nation? They're going to love it. It's going to be probably, I'm excited. I got Kevin Williams Jr. and I thought that was cool.
And it was cool. Kevin Williams.
Yeah. And it was super cool. But I mean, we're moving up the ranks here. You could say that I'm starting to become a professional.
Well, tonight we're speaking with a professional here. We're talking with Tyler Kai, who came to Lincoln in August 2021 as the Associate Athletic Director of Leadership Gifts and Capital Projects. He leads the overall major gift program for capital projects and endowments, secures major gift commitments from Husker supporters while managing the Huskers Athletic Fund. Welcome to the Redcast, Tyler.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Your career's taken you a lot of places, Tulane and Tennessee prior to here, and you're also a graduate of both Iowa State and Kansas State. So let's start there. Tell us a little bit, what were some of the things that made you want to come to Lincoln, Nebraska?
Yeah, so I was actually born in Nebraska. I was raised across the river in Iowa, so I know that there may be some folks that will hold that against me, but I grew up a Husker. I have an old, 1994 Husker Pizza Hut football that I still have in my basement. So it was always a part of my life. I got into college athletics and I've been really working in college athletics my entire professional career. The Huskers was always a program that I wanted to work for. And it's for obvious reasons. I think that every fan can understand why anyone would want to work for the Huskers or be a coach for the Huskers. We have a lot going for us, strong history, strong fan support. It's just an unbelievable athletics department. So as my career has taken me all over the country, getting back this direction was always something I wanted to do. And timing ended up working out perfect. Right before here, I was in New Orleans working for Tulane. And if anyone's ever been to New Orleans, it's a fantastic place to visit. We loved our time there. We were there for 5 years. And would never, if you would have asked me, I guess when I was a kid, if I would have ever thought I lived in New Orleans, Louisiana, I would probably told you absolutely not. But I'm glad that we did it. But in our new phase of life, I've got a 1.5-year-old son. Lincoln is a fantastic place to raise a family. Now we're closer to family too. I've got a lot of family that lives in Des Moines. So it was a perfect opportunity to come here. And I think coming at a right time. So I think that timing was really strong as well. We have a lot that we're trying to accomplish underneath Trev's leadership. And so I'm coming in at a place that I feel like not necessarily on the ground floor, but really as the scaffolding starts to go up, it's going to go up quickly. And that's a challenge that I'm excited about.
Trev's talked a lot about like unity of purpose within the athletic department, not just on the teams, but just really the culture within the athletic department. And I think we were talking, it was Brandon Vogel of Hale Varsity a couple of weeks ago. And he was talking about how it's almost like you got to get that right first at the athletic department before you can start, fixing teams. It's a kind of a cumulative thing. Have you noticed the culture changing within the department, I guess, since August when you got there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably I don't know enough about the history, obviously, because I came in right at the same time as Trev, so I don't know any different. But the energy in the department is really strong. And I think the other thing that I've been very encouraged about, and we'll probably talk about it more on the show, is everything is up for evaluation and discussion. And I think that's exciting as well. There's certainly some things that we do very, very well. And there's some things that we can certainly make improvements upon. But even the things that are doing incredibly well doesn't mean that we're just going to continue to do them the way that we've always done them. So I think that's a byproduct of Trev's leadership and Trev's, vision. We're talking a lot about our mission and vision statement as well, and making sure that what we decide to do as a department makes sense and empowers and mobilizes everyone in the department to pull the rope in the same direction. So yeah, there's a lot that is encouraging as an employee of where I see us going. And I hope other fans and people out there that follow what's going on also see that. I carry a lot of optimism for where we're going, and I hope that a lot of other people do too, because it's going to be a lot of fun once we can really pull it all together with unity and purpose.
It's interesting. We on the Redcast, we do a constant evaluation all the time too. And Boomer and I, just before this, we were thinking about cutting Rob. So, but I don't know. We'll stick. Maybe tonight you can stick around, but you better be on your P's and Q's.
Well, on a more serious note, though, I do have a question for you, kind of, if and maybe just for our listeners and for the people that come back and listen to this later, if maybe you can define a little bit more about what it is that your role is within the athletic department.
Well,
I guess
Rob, that's what we're gonna get to here.
That is what we're getting to. Okay,
that
cool.
is what we're getting to here.
Sorry, I know he was giving
it's
the
a nice
background.
segue. It's almost like
It's a great segue actually into our tweets of the week. And here are a couple of the tweets here from Tyler over the last few weeks. The first one was this week we welcomed 2 Omaha Huskers as newest members of our Nebraska Leadership Society. The generous support of our fans has always been the steady force behind our Huskers athletic programs. And then another one was, I can't imagine you were driving when you took this photo, Tyler, but let's go meet some Iowans for Nebraska today. So sometimes the job takes you to some seedy places, we understand. But I want to go to that first one here, the Nebraska Leadership Society. Can you give us a little bit of a understanding of what that is?
Sure. Yeah. And I guess it's important for me to state I had the phone mounted, so I was not touching it. Both hands were on the wheel, seatbelt on, was not speeding.
10 and 2.
Down I-80. So that's important for me to state. I was very safe when I was doing that. But yeah, so the Nebraska Leadership Society is really a group of people that we recognize that give over $25,000 annually. So that's collective, right? So if you have seats on the West Sideline that you're making a donation for, you gave $10,000 for those seats as a donation. You gave $10,000 to the Go Big campaign, and you threw $5,000 to our volleyball program in honor of their 5 national championships. That would then qualify you for our Leadership Society. It's really as a part of our structure within the Huskers Athletic Fund to really to put people in different categories, if you will. We have walk-ons, black shirts, All-Americans, directors, etc. The Leadership Society is really the top tier of that. So it's important for me to note that I recognize not everyone can make a $25,000 contribution annually. That is a pretty significant contribution. And the average donor in the Huskers makes really closer to a $2,000 gift a year. So this group is about 250 donors or families, and they're across the entire country. So I think we have about 17 states that's represented. A majority of those folks are here in Nebraska, but really leading into that next tweet, we have people all over the place. So there's members of the Leadership Society that are in New York, California, Scottsdale, Seattle, Dallas, all over the place. So there's, as we all know, there's Huskers everywhere. And so this Leadership Society was really to try to provide an opportunity for us to recognize those who are incredibly generous and invested a significant amount of money into the future of the athletics department.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I guess really to answer your question too, Rob, the way I describe my job is ultimately I would get fired if I don't raise money, right? My job is to generate revenue for the department. But as a byproduct of that, I get to go and travel around and meet with Huskers to help people figure out problems with their tickets and their parking, as well as talk about different giving priorities. If folks want to set up a scholarship, we talk about that a lot. Talking about the Go Big project or any other capital campaign we have going on. I cover all of it. In addition to also talking a little bit of some shop about our football program, volleyball program, bowling, rifle, you name it. We basically cover it all. So I've met a lot of very different people that are Huskers fans, from Des Moines, Iowa to Omaha. I've got to get out to the west side of the state. So Rob, maybe I'll come out and see you in Colorado sometime. But
man, do you drink beer?
I do.
We've got two of the best breweries in Colorado and a couple of distilleries right here in Greeley. So
well, there you go.
Yeah. Come on,
I know you're not drinking right now, so
you know what, man? I'll sit with you while you have a beer. I'm not one of those non-drinkers.
He did that with me last week. I was in Greeley a week ago tonight, actually, and we went to those distilleries and breweries, and he watched me drink. So
yeah.
I love it.
Kind of a little creepy, but it's all right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just sat there,
and watching.
Hey,
in silence.
We got a guest bedroom too, man. You're welcome to stay. Save the.
We're really getting into weird areas here, Rob.
The university some money. I know they're strapping for cash right now, so it's Well, you've got the Go Big project and you've got the Go Big Redcast. I just want to make sure our listeners know that we're not affiliated yet.
Right. Yes. There's no official partnership
yet.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yes.
Well, part of your job, you said, is to help people out. And I think something that was interesting that's happened in the last couple of months is the Memorial Stadium survey that went out where, the best way to help them is to hear from them. And to kind of go over some of the initial results here, and this is just high level stuff on this first slide, but the survey is completed. We're almost 22,000, which were about 10% of the 222,000 sent out. Median age was 45 to 54. The median income was 100,000 to 150,000. 79% of the responses were from people within 150 miles or less of Lincoln. And as far as areas where Memorial Stadium is currently overperforming, sound system quality, covered seating availability, scoreboards, and video boards. Areas of underperforming are parking access, convenience of purchasing concessions, and stadium exit process. And the last thing I added on this one, and it was really just because of the percentage, the element that could be most enhanced was seat comfort, 77%. And the number 2 option, which I can't remember what it was, but it was at 24. So there was a large drop off between seat comfort and whatever the next one is. But I guess, Tyler, as you see that, is there anything that jumps off the page when you see those results or any surprises?
I think we were pleased with the results when it comes to the amount of people that took the time to fill it out. So thank you for anyone who did that. It was a lengthy survey. We tried to be as detailed and comprehensive as we possibly could. And we utilized an industry standard group to help compile the questionnaire as well as provide some analysis for us. So that was first and foremost. I think we were very happy that 22,000 people filled it out. Outside of that, it was good to put numbers to trends we had thought were occurring, right? It wasn't a surprise really to any of us that seat comfort was a hot button issue and that there's something that we need to do to address seat comfort. Anyone who sat in Memorial Stadium on a bleacher seat recognizes that they probably haven't had always the best experience when they sit on one of those bleacher seats packed in with 90,000 other people. So, maybe not necessarily something that was terribly surprising, but something that we were glad to see matched our suspicion. When it came to also I think there was another slide in the presentation as well that was talking about those that traveled from outside of 150 miles too. There was obviously a taper off. Most people are traveling from within the 150 miles, but then when you look at Western Nebraska, people coming from Scottsbluff, we have a lot of folks that are coming from further distances. There's a lot of folks that have season tickets in Des Moines and people that have season tickets in New York. I think there's people in North Carolina that have season tickets. So we also recognize that Lincoln and Omaha are a bulk of where a lot of our people are coming, but there are several people that are coming from long distances as well, and are dedicated to coming 5, 6, 7 Saturdays every year to the stadium. So as we just evaluate what comes next, because truthfully, we haven't started talking about really what does come next. We wanted to make sure that we gather the information first before making any type of decision on how Memorial Stadium could be modernized, or what our fans are even expecting with their experience in Memorial Stadium. This was a critical piece of information for us to then take, analyze, and make good decisions on how we move forward.
Boomer, Rob, do you have any thoughts or questions on the survey up to this point?
Yeah, there were some things I was curious on the survey. I know the median response age was, 45 to 54. How does that compare nationally to other programs? I realize that's who responds, but, the stereotype of a lot of people in the stadium, it's always the blue hairs are in the stadium. I mean,
Sure.
How does a Nebraska fan in the stadium compare to the rest of the country, or at least the Power 5?
Well, it's funny. Whenever I go to national conferences, we all have the oldest fan base. Everyone says that, right? Whether you're at Tennessee or UCLA, everyone's like, our fan base is the oldest. The reality is, I think naturally the fan bases that are buying season tickets are in that same demographic. The way that we look at different generations, younger generations are consuming sports a little bit differently than probably a 45 or 50-year-old would. I think we expected a little bit of that same, a little bit of some correlation between the respondents and that median income. Obviously, folks that are a little bit more established in their life or in their careers are probably making a little bit more money and are buying season tickets and attending. There's also a generational piece here too. I think our average donor and season ticket holder has been involved for over 15 years. So there's a lot of longevity when it comes to our fans. So all of that kind of correlated a little bit. I think that this is not backed in any fact, so don't hold me to this, but I was astounded to see the average, lifetime or years of giving for Huskers as it relates to the other institutions I've worked for, like Tulane, Tennessee, Kansas State, and Iowa State. I think that our fans have been involved for much longer and have stayed involved for much longer than the average fan base. That may not be surprising to folks, as you know, that tickets are passed down generation to generation. But for me, that is something that was very different than my previous experiences.
Yeah, when you see the team, when they played Iowa last year and they're 3-8, it's the end of the season. The season didn't go the way any of us wanted to, but you're seeing a full crowd. I mean, having been at Tulane and been at K-State and Iowa State and Tennessee, that doesn't happen other places. I know some people sometimes will question the validity of the sellout streak. BS. That's legit. What this fan base continues to show up time and time again, win or loss. I mean, it truly is, I guess we all stick together in all kinds of weather, but that's got to be impressive to see.
Honky, it's unbelievable to me that we have the dedication, the passion, and not only that, but the generosity that we have in our fan base. It is an unbelievable phenomenon that occurs in Memorial Stadium, regardless of the outcome of the game. I'll even go to, Fordham, that we were up 42-6, and there's still 70,000 people in the stadium clapping, cheering, engaged in the game. That is unusual, right? That is not the norm. You look at places even like Alabama, their student section leaves at halftime. And half their fans are running for the exits at halftime if they go up big. Our fans are dedicated to staying. And I think that is a really impressive characteristic of all of our fans. And something, though, at the same time, we cannot take for granted because of that reason. Nebraska is different than a lot of other places. We have A lot of places have generous support. A lot of places have more donors than we do. We have 17,000. There's some schools that have 24,000. So they have more. But the commitment and dedication that our people have to the Huskers is truly unmatched. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, the ownership that this state and the people here, the alumni, the ownership over the program is it's unlike anything I've seen any place else. And when I go to games, that's something that I know I hear from other fan bases when they talk about us there. Well, let's go to the second slide of the results. And this is the one I know Boomer would love to get into here. And it's the alcohol. Come on, the booze, right? We need to get that going here at Memorial Stadium. And I say that a little bit with tongue in cheek because I know that we have some Redcasters that are, I'm sure you hear this, they're vehemently opposed to it, and some that are absolutely for it. But according to the results, 72% had a positive or neutral attitude towards alcohol. 83% had a positive or neutral attitude towards alcohol-free sections. That's an area I'd like to talk about in a little bit. 80% had said there'd be no impact if there was an elimination of the stadium reentry policy. And I think the last statement here, alcohol sales would have an overall net positive impact on attendance at Nebraska home football games. So I guess, as you get that information back there, what should Husker fans start to expect? Not just at Memorial Stadium, but a couple weeks ago we had the Big Ten wrestling tournament at PBA where there was alcohol sold. That was a Big Ten event. But now what are your learnings from that? The Garth Brooks concert, all that kind of cumulatively added together. What are some of the takeaways that we can start to expect?
Yeah, I think expect us to be thoughtful and strategic with how we proceed. The results are encouraging for those who want alcohol sales, but it's not as easy as flipping a switch really at Memorial Stadium to introduce alcohol into the stadium. There are some infrastructure things that do need to be addressed when it comes to Memorial Stadium. Now, I would be, you mentioned the Big Ten wrestling tournament. Obviously, Pinnacle Bank Arena is equipped to have alcohol sales. They do it at concerts and other special events. So it's easier for us to introduce it there than it would be at Memorial Stadium, just from a pure infrastructure perspective. We learned a lot from the Garth Brooks concert from that infrastructure. We don't have a lot of coolers space if we were doing canned beer or canned alcohol. So we have to bring in refrigeration trucks to keep alcohol cold or drinks cold. So those are some things that as we look to doing it at Memorial Stadium, we want to make sure we do it right. And I know that's a big emphasis for Trev as he's making these types of decisions, if we're going to do it, let's make sure we're doing it in the right way. And it's the best business decision for the Huskers and for the athletics department, while also providing our fans with a positive experience, because we don't want somebody to have a negative experience when it comes to alcohol sales, which is why we even asked that question about alcohol-free sections. Listen, I say ideas are easy. Execution is everything. It's an easy idea to say to have alcohol-free sections. Without having alcohol sales in Memorial Stadium, we certainly already feel the impacts of intoxication. So it's hard to be able to police that. But there are other areas or other schools around the country that have what are called family fun zones or family sections, where you're really targeting more of a family to attend the game or sit in similar sections. So it's possible that some of those types of things could be introduced. But we haven't, like I said earlier, we haven't taken any of this information and set out a plan yet. We really wanted to gather the information, analyze it, and then put together a game plan for how we proceed.
Well, I know some of the feedback we got on one of the social media platforms a month or so back when we wrote something positive about alcohol. And I've seen this from other people is, well, we don't want Colorado from the 90s. And let me be very clear here. I don't want Colorado from the 90s. Nobody wants Colorado ever. Sorry, Rob. But
no offense taken.
But back in the day, that was one of the only schools doing it. But I think it is important for people that maybe have those memories of 20 years ago is to understand in today's climate, how many schools in the Big Ten already have it.
Right.
Ohio State, I know we went to that game. Boomer, you've been up to Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota has it. And I mean, they sell grain belt beer there, which barely qualifies as food, but it's, I guess technically it's beer. Yeah.
Illinois has it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Illinois.
I think Purdue does too, don't they? If I remember right.
Purdue,
So, yeah.
Purdue did. So, I mean, you know the number off the top of your head, Tyler? Or?
I actually do not know the number of Big Ten institutions or even schools around the country, but the trend is going towards it.
It's not uncommon.
It's really not uncommon at all. I think that a lot of schools have introduced it. And I think even the early pilots of the program, West Virginia was one of these that did it. They did a study on alcohol-related incidents in their stadium. They actually saw a decrease in alcohol-related incidents. And I think the byproduct of that is just people aren't binge drinking as much out in the parking lots before they go into the stadium. We are a little bit of a unique beast. And even on their on the survey, we asked a question about reentry. Most places, when you start introducing alcohol, will not allow reentry. And that's really a liability issue as well. If you start selling alcohol, depending on state laws, there's some liability that could be associated with over serving someone. So there's a lot to consider when it comes to that. But West Virginia saw a significant decrease. A lot of other schools saw a decrease in alcohol-related incidents. A prior institution, Tulane. Now, granted, the caveat to this is that you're in New Orleans, which is a drinking culture. There were very few alcohol-related incidents. And in one of our club areas, it was all-inclusive wine, beer, soft drinks, and food. Ooh. So all with your ticket, you got all free drinks, all food, etc. And I will tell you, in my 5 years at Tulane, I don't think there was one alcohol-related incident that occurred in the club, which is pretty astounding to think about when you're talking about an open bar.
So I'm looking here and I found something that actually says like which schools in the Big Ten specifically sell alcohol. And through 2021, there was Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Ohio State, Purdue, Rutgers, and Minnesota. Those are the schools so 8 schools that sell alcohol. I don't know if Iowa did it this year or not, because it was a pilot program for them. So we'll see if they continue to do it. I would assume that they probably are. I haven't heard anything.
Those are the schools that offered for general sales. I think Penn State, Wisconsin, Sparty, and Hydrox NU have it as part of their private suites and premium seating. So Nebraska and Michigan are the only ones that basically a dry stadium.
Hydrox NU is Northwestern, Tyler. Sorry, we call them Hydrox NU. So they're like the other Oreo.
Yeah, I mean, sure, they were the Oreo first, but nobody cares. So well, we all know who the real NU is. So
I read the West Virginia study, and the binge drinking went down, but the couch burning went up, strangely enough. So I'm not sure how that correlates.
Yeah, I don't know either. They'd have to probably do some more longitudinal studies on that to figure out if there's some correlation.
Hey, Boomer, do we have any comments yet about
yes, so we've got a few here. Let's see, Jason Stinger, one of our loyal listeners, he thought alcohol-free section seemed like a bad idea. Maybe a guy just wants a beer, and people aren't probably going to get drunk on $10 beers anyway, and that's probably fair.
Be surprised, Jason. You should come to an A's game with me sometime, like, because you got to think about what they consume in the parking lot, and then by the time they're on their $10 beers,
but that's the thing. You're not drinking $10 beers to get drunk. If you're already showing up that way, which is completely outside of the stadium. You can't control that. What I thought was interesting was when Dave and I went with friend Gary and his girlfriend at the time. We went to the Ohio State game in 2016, and when you lose 62-3, you'll take every beer you can have. But leading up to that, it was a night game, and so we were. we were just having your normal amount of drinks, but what I remember was them kind of saying, hey, you don't have to worry. No one's binging at the end. You're not drinking those last 3 in the last 30 minutes because, you can just get to the game. And it kind of lets you just, I don't know. I just kind of spaced them out a little more and it was a little more responsible. That's on me. You can't police everyone that way. But, I didn't see any issue at all with it or how it was administered, at least at Ohio State. And again, when you're paying $10 or $12 a beer, it's pretty hard you're not showing up sober and getting drunk on that. I'll just put it that way. That's not probably going to happen.
That's a valid.
Yeah. And I think that's, to Jason's point, that's exactly what makes this an easy idea, and it can be difficult to execute. I think that there's obviously education that needs to go into making sure that people understand that if they are buying a ticket, they're buying it into an alcohol-free section. So there's a lot of layers to making sure that if we do it, and this goes back to everything that we're trying to accomplish here, if we're doing it, it needs to be a thoughtful, strategic approach to how we actually execute it. And we need to be prepared for all sides of that conversation. So we see a lot of value in it. And I think that Honky, you could probably even put the slide back up. What was it? It was positive or neutral. Yeah, 83% positive or neutral attitude. So I wouldn't say that the vast majority, unfortunately, Jason, were negative about alcohol-free sections. So it is possible it could happen. But again, we haven't even gotten to that point where we know exactly how we'll execute all of this. So it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah. And I do think one thing that all sides, no matter what you fall on, is that we all want Memorial Stadium to continue to be the experience that it is for opponents, for kids, for families. I mean, that is something that is so uniquely special. I can remember Merrill Hodge coming, I think, at the BYU game in 2015, and we lose on a last second Hail Mary, and he still talked about just how amazing the fans were in a game where, you could expect all the worst from the fans, but that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in Lincoln, Nebraska. And we want Memorial Stadium to always be special. We just, can we do that in the same way? Can we have the best of both worlds, be able to continue to keep that environment while also allowing adults to be able to have a drink? That's the goal, at least that's the goal of the Redcast.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, one of my all-time favorite questions to ask any Husker fan is, do you remember your first football game? And I think that elicits a lot of really positive memories for folks coming to the stadium as a kid. And we don't want to lose that purity. I mean, I think that's really important, that people still feel comfortable to bring their kids to a football game and don't feel as if the atmosphere is for adults only. So Travis said Memorial Stadium belongs to the people of Nebraska. And that is very true. It belongs to kids all the way up through, our older kids.
Well, my first experience at Memorial Stadium was the CU game. What was that, 4 years ago now? Is that about right? I come from Northern California, moved out to Colorado, finally got an invite to come out to that game with the Redcast guys. I have to say, I mean, I've been to a lot of stadiums around the country, and it was probably one of, if not the best experience that I had as far as just a fan base, was. The people there were super nice. You're driving through the state of Nebraska, and it doesn't matter where you stop to get gas, where you stay the night. My wife and I stopped halfway there and stayed the night somewhere and then drove the rest of the way to Memorial the next morning. I mean, it was red as far as the eye could see. It was like a national holiday. And it's even like that for the spring game. I came out there last year for the spring game. It was the exact same way. It was like a national holiday, red as far as the eye can see. And you don't see that anywhere else outside of, and I know they're going to laugh at me, but you don't see that anywhere else outside of like a Raider game where they used to have the parking lot at Oakland Coliseum was full of silver and black as far as the eye could see. It's like 40 acres of nothing but people tailgating as far as the eye can see. It's silver and black. And that's the only other time I've experienced anything like that in my life. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm part of the two best fan bases in sports. Like that's that for me. And the Huskers are way nicer than Raider fans. I will say.
Yeah, I shriek every time you compare Husker fans to Raider Nation. I'm not gonna.
I was only comparing it as far as the scene goes, but as far as people go, Husker fans are way nicer. That's true.
Well,
random tangent back to the survey. Did you just have any questions who the 2% of people that thought we needed salads as a food enhancement at the games were? What kind of maniacs sits at a football game? I could really use a chef salad right now.
That was me. I'm sorry.
Oh, that makes sense.
That was me too. I really could go for a Cobb salad when the light show is going on in the end of the third quarter, start of the fourth quarter. No, I think I don't know. We obviously didn't extrapolate that out, but maybe that was one thing I was a little bit surprised by was concession variety. Most of the responses were to local chains, which I would assume that is, our Valentino's, Runza, Fairbury hot dogs, etc. That there wasn't more of an interest in, brisket sandwiches or, an Omaha Steaks kebab or something, right? Like, I think that was something that we were anticipating coming out of those results. So to see a large portion select the local chains as what they would like to see in the stadium, maybe personally from where I sit, was a little bit surprising.
Maybe one of the last things I guess I have, the seat comfort was brought up. And I know taking the survey, there was a lot of questions about different types of seating, from outdoor, indoor, club, low seating. And I guess what were some of the takeaways that you got from that? And what's the feedback on doing more of those? Because that's getting into the higher price thing. And that was some of the feedback I saw from people that took the survey was that, geez, we're not how much money you think we got here? We can't buy one of these, but I'm curious what the feedback was from that.
Yeah. Well, and Rob, I think you've obviously been over to the Raiders Stadium, the new Raiders Stadium. They've got a variety of seating options at those stadiums. Most new stadiums today offer loge boxes, clubs. The Vikings have a club section that the team walks through pregame. So there's stadiums, I think, in today's modern age, especially if you're to design a brand new one, offer a variety of experiences. And Memorial Stadium's entering into the 100th year next year, 2023. So obviously when stadiums were designed over the last 100 years, bleacher seats were the norm, right? Mm-hmm. Then I think we evolved maybe to chairbacks. Suites then got really popular. Now I had a phone call with somebody with the Green Bay Packers a couple weeks ago, and the Packers are even having conversations about if their suites are too large, because what they're seeing is people would rather have 4 and 6 mini suites, which are those loge boxes. So I think as we looked around the country to benchmark other professional football stadiums as well as collegiate stadiums, a lot of them are starting to offer those varying seating experiences. Oklahoma has loge boxes and a couple different club areas. When we went down there, we toured through some of those areas too. So we really wanted to do is understand the appetite for what types of experiences people are looking for, especially knowing that likely people don't want to sit on a bleacher anymore. So if you're not going to sit on a bleacher, what would be your choice? Is it a chairback? Is it a loge box? Is it a ledge seat? Would you like to just have a bar top with a ledge you could set a drink down and watch the game on as being a different experience? So that was kind of the impetus of all that.
And that experience that I had, that was just a couple weeks ago. I was in Las Vegas for 311 Day, and my sister and brother-in-law bought me a tour of that stadium. And it's brand new. And I have to say that, it was almost a bit much, right? Like you walk in and it was cool. You could see here, I got to see the Super Bowl trophies. They're really old. I got to see, but one of the cool things is I got to see like Mark Davis's suite. I got to see like the club level, what they do there. They literally have a club level too. It's like $50,000 season tickets to get access to this club. All kinds of celebrities are there. They can literally walk out of the club and be field level, like you said, standing at a bar where they can just set their drink there and watch the game right behind the players, because the field there it's like a 4-foot structure that they drive into the field every single game where the grass is there. And so it comes field level. They have like a whole section there too, which is like club level seating, but it's catered by celebrity chefs every single weekend, with the game. So
so some things don't always apply.
But there's also one thing they have there is there's not a bad seat in the house, and there's all kinds of options, right? Even the top seats all the way up still have an excellent view of the field. There's no scoreboard in the way. There's nothing like that. You can see almost all the way across the stadium. So it was absolutely amazing to see. It's very comparable to like Minnesota's new stadium there in Minneapolis, the Vikings, which I've also been to that stadium. And I guess my question would be on that is, things like that, once they do the upgrades, are you going to be allowing tours, giving tours, things like that? Because like, I only come to Nebraska a couple times a year now, but I would love to be able to see the stadium. I'd love to be able to walk around and kind of understand the history of it with a Hall of Fame, things like that. Are there plans for that?
Yeah. So, and it really goes into the Go Big project. I mean, there's a lot of things that we're looking to do there when it comes to a little bit more of a fan-centered approach, right? So, right now in the North Stadium lobby of the Osborne Complex, we have our national championship trophies, our Heisman trophies, some small display cases that showcase some of our history. We'd like to be able to showcase more of that history. We're still in some concept phases of all of this, but the idea is that we want a space that fans can easily access, not only on game days, but also on any day of the week. So Rob, when you come to town on a Thursday, you can come by and see any of these artifacts. I think a lot of people's experiences in the state of Nebraska, I did not experience this myself, but the 4th grade trip to the state capitol, making Memorial Stadium a part of that, right?
Yep.
So people come and tour Memorial Stadium, and the kids get to see Memorial Stadium. The challenge is obviously you've put that in the stadium. On game days, it makes it a little more restrictive to get in. So we struggle with that right now. I mean, obviously the North Stadium entrance is an entrance to our suites on the north side. So if you don't have a ticket in the suites, you can't come in and see the national championship trophy after a certain point. So how do we, really isolate that out into another space? So I suspect a part of that will be in the Go Big project, but still conceptual with that.
Well, I will be out there on a Thursday for the spring game, so just putting that out there.
Well,
reach out to me. I'd be happy to show you around.
That would be cool. That would be cool. Well, we'll get to the Go Big project in a second here. I know just what Rob is referring to there on the photos on the left here is him at the Las Vegas arena a month or so back. On the right was a trip that a group of us Husker fans took going out to Michigan in 2013, and we stopped at Notre Dame along the way. And it was a weekend where they didn't have a home game. So on that Friday, we could take a tour of Notre Dame, and there we are up in the suites, and then walking down, touching the Play Like a Champion trophy or sign on the wall and everything. So it's a cool experience, and certainly something that I think we'd all love to see with Nebraska. The last thing maybe with the Memorial Stadium stuff, I know in the 90s when Boomer and I were going to college there, capacity was like 75,000, and people, it's kind of hard to think of it this way, but today capacity is almost 90,000. We basically added a PBA to Memorial Stadium with the 2006 edition to the north side and the 2013 edition to the east side. So as we continue to work forward, and don't quote me on this, but I swear back in the day there was they would say, hey, we have 75,000 people coming in and 15,000 people on a backlog of tickets, right? Well, now that we're at 90,000, that backlog isn't as big just from the numbers. So is there a sweet spot that Memorial Stadium is? Have you guys come to any kind of conclusion with that? Could we see a future where it's downsized a little bit, but maybe more right-sized, or is that not really, those discussions were not at that point yet?
I would say, Honky, we're not at that point yet, but we're looking at. We really want to make sure that what we're doing not only is best practices across the entire enterprise, but also makes sense for Nebraska. The average stadium size is much smaller. I would say we're past the point of 102,000 person stadiums, packing people in like sardines into stadiums, right? I think comfort is really important to a lot of people when they come to a venue, especially when we all have choices now of sitting on our couch or going to a sports bar, hanging out at the rail yard instead of coming into Memorial Stadium. The experience, I think, is different than what it was before. Now that games are all broadcast on really any television or device you want. So we're not probably there yet to understand if the capacity will go down, what it would go down to. I would be shocked if we made it bigger. Let me put it that way. So my guess is that it would say either the same or decrease. As we look at seat capacity, seat comfort, obviously making seats wider or adding chair backs does decrease capacity. So with any type of introduction of wider seats or seat width, there are some restrictions that we have there. The next challenge is we have close to 70,000 season ticket holders. So any decrease in capacity, it's difficult to be able to say, Honky, you get to keep your seats. Rob, you don't. Boomer, you only get to keep 2 of your 4, right? It
is not hard for me to tell Rob he has to get rid of his.
Ducked on you. I don't have season tickets.
Well, that was easy then. So we actually just opened up 4 more seats.
Yeah, we just opened. Well, actually, this is even this off season. Is there? Are they widening some of the seats even this off season? Is that kind of an ongoing process?
That's right. So in the end zones, we'll be widening some seats immediately. So north and south will have wider seats, but that's based on availability, right? So again, we're not going to push anybody out of their seats. That's really important for me to state. No one's going to be told they can't come back into Memorial Stadium. It will be a choice, and we'll try to use the available inventory to renumber and make some seats wider. So that's really the philosophy right now, with the hope that we can continue to do more of that in the long run. But it's a very complex situation. We're enlisting a lot of experts when it comes to construction, when it comes to structures, planning, any of these long-term capital campaigns. Our construction season is not very long, as you can imagine. So let's say hypothetically we do make a significant improvement to the stadium, and a big portion of it has to be offline for 6 months. How do we do that and ensure that we have it reopened for the start of the football season?
Yeah, because there's examples like A&M and Oklahoma that basically in one off season, because of the weather, they were able to tear down and build up. But yeah, we have different climactic concerns, I suppose. I will say, to Rob's point earlier, that I think how Las Vegas is set up, and Minnesota, the pro one. Yeah, when you're starting from a blank canvas, you can build it exactly the way you want from scratch. I am really impressed with like the east side, as an example, sitting up on the top side, the 600 level. I love going up there. I've taken my son up there, and it's super easy going up escalators, and you have your own concourse and all the amenities of the restrooms and the concession stands. I mean, that's a good example there, I think, of how Memorial Stadium, they've done some good things over time to retrofit, and it'll be interesting. The South Stadium is obviously the one that that it's going to be interesting to see what happens with it. We have all kinds of ideas, but that's another show. Let's move on to the last part here, and that is the Go Big project. And anyone that's been by Memorial Stadium in the last couple of months, or will be going there for the spring game, you will notice cranes, and you will notice buildings going up on the north side. The North Stadium project is well underway. I'm going to show a couple photos here, but Tyler, as I kind of do that, just go through it and explain to the Redcasters, what's going on, what's getting built, and where are we at kind of in the timeline.
Yeah. So it's all in all, it's a 315,000 square foot facility. And it's really, the best way I can describe it is almost like a walkout basement type of home. Okay. So the back side that is on the football field side. So we're looking at the front of the building. On the back side, it walks out onto the practice fields. So that's a great one, Honky, right there. So the bottom level is really the basement on the front level. Okay. So as you look at this view here, the bottom is football operations level with the weight room on the right-hand side. The middle level will be an academic center and a training table, so a student-athlete dining facility. That is available to all 650 of our student-athletes. And then the top floor is available for our football meeting spaces, coaches' offices, theater room, etc. Really anything and everything you would want from an operations perspective from the football team. There is also going to be the ability to expand later. So we want to make sure that as we're making this investment in this facility, it allows us to have future expansion. So some of it will be shelled out. We don't need the space right now, but who knows what it'll look like in 5 to 10 years. So the facility's original price tag was $155 million. With the current rates of inflation and material cost and labor costs, that number has actually been increased to $165 million. So our initial fundraising goal was $100 million, and we had initially phased it into two. So $80 million to get it started, which we hit. Really, when I arrived, we were entering into phase two. We had secured $80 million. We were trying to close out that final $20 million, and then got an additional estimate to increase back up. So really, we needed to raise another $30 million. Fundraising is going very well for it. We're in a very good position. In fact, we don't really have to phase it into two. Trev really wanted to make sure that we don't phase this project. We get it all done in one fell swoop. So he's been very aggressive with fundraising. He's asked our team to be very aggressive with fundraising. So a lot of people have continued to respond. So there's still some work to be done for us to be able to get there, but a lot of really positive conversations as it relates to the project. And really dissecting it out even more, some of the key features of the facility, sports medicine, weight room, anything and everything you would imagine for the football program to have to be successful and efficient with their time. So new locker room, lounges, larger team meeting spaces. Most people don't know this, but the original Osborne complex was designed for a football roster of 110. We now carry a roster of over 150. So when I say this facility is 315,000 square feet, we're not building a large facility just so we can go out on the recruiting trail and say we have the largest facility in the country. It is a byproduct of us wanting to stay true to our walk-on program and carry a larger roster. So the weight room will be able to accommodate more of our kids. It'll be larger. Locker room will be larger. Team meeting rooms will be larger. All of that was a main priority as we were designing the facility. And then really too, as we were making this enhancement, the current academic center and training table is on the west side, first floor of Memorial Stadium. Bringing that over to the east side puts it closer to the heart of City Campus. So now all of our student athletes, if they're coming from a class in the business school, they're going to be able to walk right out of the business school, walk right through lot 12, go right into the new facility, meet with an academic tutor, grab a meal, and then get right back into class. It's a more efficient location for all of our student athletes. So it will be our home for a very long time. And in the landscape of what NIL is doing with fundraising, it's possible that this could be one of the last large facilities across the country as other people are looking at what they're going to do from other schools. So we were one of the first back in the early 2000s with the Osborne complex. Since then, 62 out of the 65 schools around the country have put in Power 5, have made some level of an enhancement to an operations facility. So the Osborne complex that we currently have is great, excluding the size. So this new facility not only will enhance that by giving us a better facility, but it's also large enough to accommodate our teams. And really just to give you an idea of what we're up against as well. Purdue just opened up a new facility. That's 112,000 square feet, $62 million project. Illinois just did one that was 107,000 square feet. That I think it was close to 80 million. And Rutgers is working on a $150 million operations facility. So
yeah, Northwestern's on Michigan there. I mean, everyone has them, right?
That's right.
And I know one of the things that I appreciate so much about how Nebraska's is currently set up and will continue to be is the proximity and the efficiency you talk about. It's the proximity. Everything's right there. You go, I think it's Michigan's. It's a couple blocks away from the stadium. Northwestern's, you're a mile or whatever away from Ryan Field is where the practice facilities are. And how Memorial Stadium is always kind of everything's been done in house. Well, now it's that times 100 when you have removed the track and now it's kind of a I don't know land grab or whatever, but it's a big land area now that's all kind of dedicated to football. And 3 outdoor practice facilities there, the indoor one. It's great. And, Rob asking the question earlier too about the tours. I love the North Stadium entrance and everything that they have, but I've always felt it was clunky because you're walking in there and it's a working area. It's where students and coaches and stuff are walking through too, as you're trying to, look at the Heisman room. And while for a fan, that's great. I'm sure that's not always conducive for, the people that are in there. It's a working facility. And so to have some dedicated areas that can be for fans and dedicated areas for the people that are there doing their jobs, I can see how that can be beneficial to all. What happens to the North Stadium, like the current facilities there? Has that been decided yet? Like the current weight room, do you know what that's going to be changed over to?
That's a part of really what is pushing us to do the survey is the entire west side of the stadium where the academic center is and training table is. That will all move to the new facility. And then the first floor and second floor of North Stadium are all football centric. So all those are moving to the new facility. So we have a lot of square feet that we've got to repurpose and redesign. And so now we're trying to figure out, do those stay as operational spaces or do we then convert those into fan facing spaces? So while we have vacated a lot of square feet, that's really the most important decision for us to make. And Trev really wants to have a long-term master plan, whether that includes facilities or not, just a strategic vision for where we're going. And Memorial Stadium, I would say, is a main priority when it comes to that.
Remind me again of what the completion date is for that. And a question that Hunky may have been leading up to, I don't know, but it's popped into my head, so I'm going to ask it. How is this affecting recruiting? Like, are you involved in any way around that and seeing how that's bringing in players like Casey Thompson and Chubba Purdy and some of these other big names that we're getting, like DeColdest, like coming in, seeing that we're building this. Are these things going to be completed in their time there? Or?
Yeah. So the projected timeline right now is for us to get keys to the building in August of 2023. Nice. Construction is going well. So we're on a good timeline right now to be able to meet that threshold or meet that deadline. And as it relates to recruiting, I can't directly speak to it, but I would suspect that from where I sit, and really what I tell a lot of people is development is and will always be a very important factor when it comes to recruiting. Facilities are how we get or how we develop our kids, how we keep them safe, how we keep them healthy, and how we build successful programs. So I think when any kid looks around the country and views the investment that the University of Nebraska makes in every piece of their student athlete experience, it's obvious that we're one of the top programs when it comes to every portion of what they will touch. The training table is exceptional. You're going to get state-of-the-art technology when it comes to sports medicine to not only keep you healthy from a preventative care, but also rehabilitation. The weight room is state-of-the-art. Our history is obviously littered with us being one of the first schools when it comes to the birthplace of strength and conditioning. We have a sports laboratory that we're doing a lot of sports science in. So in our history, we have always been dedicated to putting money back into infrastructure, and I think we always will continue to put money back into infrastructure.
Yeah, when Honky and I came last time, we walked through a section. I think we were able to view some of it. And we walked through a section where that sports laboratory was, and he was like pointing out to me, like, this is where they come and they stick all those balls on the athletes and they like make them do all these different moves and record them. And that was really cool just to see it right there inside the actual stadium itself, like as part of it. So it's kind of like the athletes are experiencing that all along.
And then security came and shooed us away. But I mean, that's a whole separate story.
Yeah, it's okay, man. The scars from the handcuffs are finally starting to heal. So.
Well, if you come to the spring game, you won't be shooed away from security. I'll walk you through there. Yeah. I've got access. You don't have to
be careful what you offer me because I am that guy. Okay.
Yeah.
I
really is.
Like,
yeah.
Like I will
you may be tasing him yourself.
I will literally be FaceTiming you on I-70, I-80 on my drive out there. Like, hey man, I'm gonna be there around 4. What you up to, man? Can I buy you a beer? Let's go on that tour.
Boomer, do we have any final questions before we get to the parting shots here?
No, I think they're pretty good. Nothing else from the fan base. Everyone just seems to be enjoying the listening. Yeah.
Well, then I want to hand this over to Boomer because there's a lot of spaces that we've talked about, new spaces for the Go Big project, and I know that Boomer has a couple specific areas or a couple specific ideas for at least some of the spaces, and then maybe some other things that we could do. So, Boomer, the floor is yours.
Oh, wonderful! Everyone's going to regret this, but I think any loyal listener of the Redcast knows we have our quixotic quests here. One of which is the need for the Ewald Jumbo Steam statue somewhere on campus. With all the construction, you think there'd be room for that for Nebraska's finest two-sport coach, and that kind of ties into just kind of one of our other ideas about it. It's just we don't always seem to recognize our really early history here at Nebraska the way a lot of other schools do. Granted, Michigan claims titles from the colonial era, I think, but when you look at even Memorial Stadium, we don't even put the conference championships prior to 1928 on there. We won
on the west.
Yeah, on the stadium. We have the whole list of the conference championships. We only start in 1928, and I've emailed a few people at the university before. I'm sure they have me blocked by now, which I mean I would, but I've never gotten an answer of why we don't do that and why we don't seem to recognize all those sorts of the championships and earlier history like that before. So I don't know if that's something we've ever thought about.
He's actually serious too, Tyler. He's actually serious too. Like this isn't a joke. This is
people think I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm really not.
Boomer is literally probably one of the smartest Nebraska football or sports historians that you will ever meet. Like, and if you're talking to him, like it sounds like he's joking on our show, but he's 100% serious. I'll leave it at that.
Well, see, Boomer, back behind me, you may not be able to make out the pictures, but that's George Flippin in that picture. I am a self-proclaimed historian myself. I do enjoy history a lot. I do not know the answer to that question of why we don't recognize any of those conference championships before a certain period. So I will ask around and I'll see if I can get an answer for you. But Yeah, I think one of the things that is most important to me personally, just in my own experience, is we have a very strong history at Nebraska from a very, very early point in our period in our existence. There are a lot of really awesome stories to be told, and I think as we enter into the 100th year of Memorial Stadium, a lot of that history will already be showcased. I think we're talking a lot about that right now, what that looks like. So honestly, Boomer, this is timely for you to even ask that question because we're discussing how we celebrate the 100th year of Memorial Stadium. So I'll mention it. I'll bring it up. One of my favorite stories as well about how Memorial Stadium was started, and Boomer, you probably know this as a historian yourself, is that the community of Lincoln and the University of Nebraska came together to raise the initial seed money to build the initial structure of Memorial Stadium. And for someone who's in fundraising, that is a really cool story to hear. Because Honky, you had mentioned, and I think you hit it on the head, the ownership of our athletics programs from our fans is unmatched. I think our people view themselves as owners, and that started early in our history. And I think that's really cool.
If I can, gosh, this is a whole different discussion. I don't even want to get down, but any way we could ever in the process of redoing Memorial Stadium and however we do it, if we could ever re-expose the 4 initial corners, the windows, all the history, the tradition that comes with that. We've had scoreboards and video boards over them now since, the 80s and 90s. But man, there's so much history and tradition that came with those corners. I'd love to see something that could expose those again back to their original form. But to summarize Boomer here, championship years on the west side, a jumbo steam statue somewhere, and then number 3, and I got to give you a lot of credit here, Tyler, because you even tweeted at us this. So you were doing your homework. But Boomer, what am I doing?
Well, that's the claw, obviously.
Well, and explain again to the Redcasters that maybe haven't heard this yet, but I'm sure they have.
Well, I'm sure they've heard ad nauseum if they've been loyal listeners for the last 5 years. But Nebraska also has the Nebraska University Athletics Hall of Fame on campus, and I've always thought that one of our deserving candidates is former Nebraska great wrestler James Raschke. He was a 3-time letter winner in wrestling here at Nebraska. He actually won the Big 8 heavyweight wrestling title one of his times here, and was going to be in the Olympics, but got injured just days before he was set to go to the Olympics. And he says that's one of his biggest regrets in life. And he walked on the football team and, played a wide variety of sports and was a big high school athlete here out of Omaha, and came to the university on a academic scholarship that he got because his dad was a baker and had some sort of connection with a baking scholarship there. He studied zoology of all things. And then he went into the Army and won championships in the armed forces there, and then got into the world of pro wrestling. And he was originally a really quiet, kind of normal guy and had a hard time doing interviews. And then he was up in Canada and hooked up with another well-known wrestler who also has a Omaha connection, Mad Dog Vachon, who actually lived in Omaha for most of his retirement. And he suggested, hey, why don't you look German? If you've ever seen James Raschke, he looks like he's, 60 now. He looked like he was 60 when he was in college. He's looked the same age basically forever. And he said, you can shave your head and you look like a German guy. And that's what he did. And he developed this persona of this kind of evil German, foreign menace wrestler, which was popular in the 60s. And, being so close to the World War and all that. And he went on to a very long, lengthy pro wrestling career, particularly in the Midwest. He was really big in the AWA territory, which people have heard me talk about before, based out of Minneapolis. And Nebraska was part of that territory. And he would come to Omaha a lot. My grandparents would tell me stories about, they'd come and watch him, in Omaha wrestle. And, they'd do the little claw thing and scare us as kids and things like that.
So the
Baron von Raschke. Yeah, James Raschke. And yeah, he was he's still alive today and still in Minnesota. He speaks highly of his time at Nebraska. And I know some of our Minnesota Twitter followers have commented how he comes to their events there and will do things there. And there was a documentary on him that just got made and released this last year. And he's still showing up on wrestling events today. He was just on AEW a few months ago live and in the crowd. So I pitched it before. And once again, I'm pretty sure everyone at the athletic department has me blocked by now, but I've always thought he's a worthy candidate to be in the Hall of Fame. And it should be Induct the Baron. Yeah, it was our hashtag that we have. And not Banner.
Banner.
Yeah, good job.
I'm trying to do this quick.
We can induct the banner too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we can induct banners too. So
we'll get them in as well. That's what
But
we'll
yeah,
do.
but that's not it.
Bruce, specifically Bruce. If we're doing banners, we want Bruce banner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm done typing. I'm done
Yeah, it's
typing.
probably for the best. Yeah,
Okay.
there we go. That's what
There
we
we
Induct
go.
the bear. Hashtag.
But
induct
no,
the
I do
bear.
give you credit for doing your homework on that. So yeah.
Yeah.
For those
Absolutely.
who don't
No, I
know,
had
Bruce
to.
Banner is the Hulk, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to be clear for those listeners that don't know that, because and we can't be friends if you don't. But
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
Boomer, it's important for me to note that my DMs are open, so I have not blocked you. Anytime that you, Rob, well, I may have to, based on some of the conversations tonight, I may have to be blocking Rob.
That's fine. It's well deserved. It's
But no, yeah, I'm happy to any of these ideas. I'm happy to at least get some level of a conversation going. I think it's important.
Well, Tyler, you have received the full Redcast treatment, which is, hey, we're going to do a 20-minute show, and it turns into an hour and 10 minutes or whatever. So that's
And Rob's inviting you to weddings and things like that
Yeah,
by
I
the end
mean-
of it. So yeah.
yeah, it's fine. But
What's this Airbnb invitation you just sent me?
I
trust
deleted-
me.
Well, Tyler, we really appreciate your time here. We're going to go through and do our parting shots, and then, as is customary on the Redcast, our guest gets to have the final one. So, Boomer, I'll start with you.
Okay, well, my parting shot, it's non-sports related, but anyone who follows us on Twitter knows our love of posting memes, particularly live-looking GIFs. And sad news today, Stephen Wilhite, the creator of the GIF format, passed away due to illness, I believe COVID. But and we can debate, so maybe we'll throw a poll up later. Is it GIF or GIF? He says it's GIF, but I say English gets away from the original creators of words, and it should be GIF. But we can argue that another time. But shout out to Stephen. He's given us hours and hours of entertainment thanks to fun internet memes. So
All right. Rob.
First of all, the G stands for graphic, people. That's a hard G, so it is GIF. All right, it's not peanut butter. Let's just be clear there. And as a parting shot, as always, I would just like to thank Tyler for coming on. I probably will be messaging G when I do come out, but I promise it won't be every single day for the next hour, every hour. I leave that to my relationship with Honky. But I actually would love it if we could just kind of get together and say hello at least while I'm out there, because I'll be out there for a few days, and you know, I love touring Lincoln. It's such a welcoming, friendly town. Spring game is a great time to be there. So regardless if you have time for us or not, at least just a quick hello would be appreciated. That'd be cool.
Absolutely.
All right. And Tyler, floor is yours.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue into my parting shot. So we have 17,000 annual donors. It's important for us to get to know as many of them as we possibly can. Whether you're here in Lincoln or in Greeley, Colorado, we want to get to know you. We'd love to get to know you. It's really important to us to find people that care a lot about this place, and we know they're out there. So my DMs are open on social media. I love engaging with people on social media. Feel free to shoot me a DM, tweet at me. I will reply to your tweet. I like to engage with people. But really, if there's anything we can be doing to better connect our fans and our donors back to the department, we'd love to do it. So I appreciate this platform you guys gave me, and thanks for having me on tonight.
Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight on the Redcast. And until we see you next, Redcasters, that's another Go Big Redcast.
Go Big Red.